Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Katan, we have quite a wide variety of stories we're going to be covering here this evening, including the United States unveiling their latest addition to their military arsenal, the F-47, named for the 47th, named after the 47th president, Mr. Donald Trump. We're also going to talk about the measles outbreak in Texas and New Mexico, now reaching 351 cases, and that's spreading to several other states. We're also going to see some more sticker shock as people go to the stores as food prices continue to rise. So these stories and a lot more, but first, is scrolling on your phone bad for your health? Well, science is now discovering that people who are addicted to scrolling on their smartphones causes their brains to work a lot harder than if they would not be addicted. So take a look at this video, courtesy of CBS Evening News, on a report that they did, and just take a look at how it affects the brain.
How much time do you spend doing this? According to a survey, the average smartphone user scrolls the equivalent of 78 miles a year. That's 3 marathons. It may be good exercise for your finger, but there is evidence it may be hurting your brain. Meg Oliver has tonight's Eye on America.
Katie Page Rosenberg, a freshman at the University of North Carolina, Asheville,
2 successes, 2 failures,
recently realized what too much scrolling was doing to her.
How many hours were you spending on your phone?
Oh God, probably like 9.
9 hours?
I was just kind of constantly on it.
You may have heard stories like hers before.
I wasn't able to focus because I would have to take out my phone every couple of minutes.
But now you can actually see the science behind it.
Smartphones have wide-reaching changes all over the brain, and specifically it grows here and it shrinks there.
Psychiatrist Brent Nelson is applying this new science at Newport Healthcare, which has mental health treatment centers for teens across the country.
This is a brain that's addicted to a smartphone.
These are MRI images from a recent study in Korea. All the red indicates increases in brain activity, the effects of smartphone addiction.
Do you want your brain to be this colorful?
You don't.
Why?
Well, because this is showing where the brain is working extra hard compared to a non-addicted brain when asked to do actually a pretty simple task.
Addicted smartphone users' brains were so colorful, so active, it made them less attentive and more easily distracted, what's now informally called brain rot.
What does that look like in real life?
Yeah, let's take school, for example. You're sitting in class and you're trying to focus. They're going to be looking around, not attending to what the teacher is trying to teach them.
Dr. Nelson says emerging research points to even greater risks.
We're just starting to see these changes, and we know they're connected to behavioral changes, depression, anxiety. The dangers are hiding in there.
Social media had really influenced me in a lot of ways. TikTok would kind of push these videos of people popping an edible before school, and I was like, if I do this, maybe I'll be cool, and I started self-medicating.
To deal with that, last year she checked into a treatment facility.
If you hadn't gone to treatment, where would you be today?
I don't think I'd be here. It was really bad.
Katie had to give up her phone in treatment. There, she found other outlets from drawing to playing guitar that helped rewire her Gen Z brain. The key, perhaps, analog antidotes reminiscent of another generation.
Playing in the dirt, drinking from the hose, sort of the Gen X kind of mentality, is shown to actually allow folks to recover, to feel better, to make it easier to kind of go about their day.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, coming from a generation before smart devices, to see a lot of young people nowadays, it seems like the simplest task, like the article said, it seems like it's very difficult for them. And if the brain doesn't get that exercise, if their bodies don't get that exercise, then it'll just continue to deteriorate over the years, and people will eventually become pretty useless.
Right, and especially shrinking that front portion of the brain where the thinking and the reasoning comes from. That's not the portion that you want to go, to shrink, and other places get larger.
That's right. Well, a strange yellow foam has been washing up on southern Australian beaches since mid-March. The Environmental Protection Agency, also known as EPA, confirmed after investigating the thick sludge-like foam was caused by a microalgae bloom called Carenia Mikimoto. That's right. Marine life is being greatly affected by the algae bloom, as many different species from various sizes of fish to seahorses and even octopus were washing up dead on Australian shores.
Well, the EPA has stated the bloom is not poisonous to humans. However, it can cause allergic reactions. Now, symptoms include upset stomach, difficulty breathing, eye irritation, skin rashes, and other symptoms similar to the flu. Now, many surfers and swimmers who've gone into the contaminated water have suffered with these effects.
Well, these conditions can even be can be felt by people just walking on the beach. This is due to, of course, the algae being dispersed in the air by the crashing waves, which is going on constantly on a beach. Some stop experiencing the symptoms after leaving the area, but most not until they wash off in clean water, and then still others have to wait it out for 24 hours or longer before those symptoms disappear.
Well, Sam Gaylord, a principal marine scientist for the EPA in South Australia, told local news, saying, quote, "We think the bloom has been driven by a large marine heat wave, which has engulfed our waters for the last couple of months." Gaylord continued, "What we need to see is some change in the weather, preferably a cold front to come through with strong westerly winds to be able to break up the bloom. But with the warmer waters continuing to be the norm, it isn't likely that a cold front will prevent future algae blooms from appearing."
That's right. And we've seen that over the years as the waters, the ocean waters, pretty much all throughout the globe have been continually warming all the way up, into Antarctica. And even we've seen it in Greenland, with the melting icebergs. It's just been a big thing for everybody that they're experiencing right now.
And just a few degrees of rising temperatures in the ocean can affect it greatly.
Yeah, and when the cycle doesn't take place like it normally does, then that allows things like that to continue to take place. Well, many Americans are suffering from sticker shock, not at car dealerships, but on store shelves. Food prices have gone up 2% over the last 12 months. There were few items that went down over the last few months, including milk, chicken, and pork. However, things like boxed breakfast foods, baked products, and seafoods increased, among many others.
Mark Zandi, the chief economist for Moody Analytics, told CBS Evening News when asked if we should expect food prices to rise, he said, "Yeah, I think so. Every year they are rising about 2%, which is pretty close to the overall rate of inflation. We should all buckle in and expect food prices to continue to rise at a healthy pace." Now, some products have changed in price drastically, but eggs, as we had mentioned recently, Katan, in recent news, have increased 59% in price since the same time last year. And beef has gone up 7.6%, according to the Consumer Price Index.
Now, hopefully they haven't been stealing the eggs like they were at the time when they were at their all-time highest. Well, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said of consumers, quote, "They're unhappy, and they're not wrong to be unhappy, that prices went up quite a bit and they are paying a lot for those things," end quote. Well, Mr. Zandi explained how that translates to American homes. He said, quote, "If you have to pay more for food and you're a low or middle income household without much or any savings, well, you got to make some pretty hard choices," end quote.
Well, Al Jazeera News was interviewing Myanmar's Deputy of Information when Southeast Asia's worst earthquake in 100 years hit. Now, the quake registered as a 7-point magnitude, and the epicenter was Mandalay, Myanmar. Now, with very little resources to search for survivors under the destruction, war-torn Myanmar is seeing the death toll rapidly increase, last reported at over 1,600 people, but of course many more trapped in the rubble, which those numbers, as they always do, are going to continue to rise.
Yeah, that's sad. Rescue workers were able to communicate with some people trapped, but have to use their bare hands to move the debris to try to save them. There is a major damage to public buildings as well as major roads and bridges. Numerous mosques, some over 100 years old, were also seriously damaged, many injured or killed while making their morning prayers.
Well, in health news, the ongoing measles outbreak in Texas and New Mexico has reached 351 cases, with 17 other states reporting measles cases as well. Now, 2 unvaccinated people have died from measles-related causes. Measles is an airborne virus that easily spreads when an infected person sneezes or coughs. Now, doctors warn about claims of vitamin A as a preventer of the virus. And even though it is used to treat the illness, taking too much can cause liver damage.
That's right. A dangerous new fungus called Candida auris in Georgia is popping up. Cases have been continually on the rise since 2016, when it was first discovered, and more than 1,600 cases have been identified in Illinois. Now, there is no cure for the infection, and the CDC says that it is a health threat, especially to those people with immunocompromised systems.
Well, a rare red meat allergy is making its debut. This allergy is linked to a new kind of tick. Alpha-gal syndrome is a serious illness that can cause full anaphylactic shock. And the CDC estimates that 450,000 people in the U.S. have it. Now, most cases are linked to the Lone Star tick that is common in the Southeast and lower Midwest, but is also shown up in Maine and Washington State. And new cases are showing up all over the nation. So not just reserved to those lower states anymore if they're seeing it in Maine and Washington State.
Mm-hmm. The United States has the largest military budget of any country in the world. And in most cases, multiple countries combined, or their spending doesn't even come close to what the U.S. budget for its defense every year. Well, a new toy is being added to the arsenal with a name that also pays homage to the current U.S. president. Take a look at this next video.
As the U.S. projects air power in West Asia, it is also preparing for future conflicts. And leading the charge is, of course, Donald Trump. The president wants a new toy for his Air Force, a shiny, costly, stealthy, brand new fighter jet. Trump unveiled his plans over the weekend and awarded the contract to Boeing. Boeing will now make America's next cutting-edge jet. It will be designated the F-47. Where the F stands for fighter and 47 is for the 47th President of the United States, which happens to be Donald Trump. You just can't miss the coincidence. The aircraft will be made under a program called the NGAD. It stands for Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter, NGAD. It will give the U.S. Air Force its first 6th generation stealth fighter jet. Donald Trump believes it will change air combat forever and give America the edge in the battlefield. Here's what he said.
The F-47 will be the most advanced, most capable, most lethal aircraft ever built. An experimental version of the plane has secretly been flying for almost 5 years, and we're confident that it massively overpowers the capabilities of any other nation. There's no other nation. We know every other plane. I've seen every one of them. And it's not even close. This is a next level.
Trump said the aircraft has been flying for 5 years. So why is it being unveiled now? You see, the NGAD program was approved in 2014, but the Biden administration put a halt on the project, and the reason was quite simple. The 6th gen stealth jet will burn holes in America's pockets. Boeing needs $20 billion just to kickstart the work. And look at the cost of each aircraft, upwards of $300 million. Let me spell that out for you again. $300 million for one single jet. That's more than the GDP of some countries, making it the costliest weapon ever. As of today, the American-made F-35 stealth jet holds that title, the costliest. One aircraft costs about $80 million, but each F-47 would cost more than 3 times more.
Katan, quite a hefty little price tag on the latest fighter jet there. And as you can see, President Trump pretty pleased that it's got the F-47 name. And even though this president has seemed to want to push peace everywhere, you know, he's not backing down, adding that to the U.S. arsenal.
That's right.
Well, in the Middle East, fighting is ramping up as attacks on the Houthi rebels continue and anti-Israel protests in Iran. Now take a look at this video on the growing unrest in the Middle East.
U.S. Central Command launches over 100 strikes, eliminating dozens of Houthi leaders and further degrading the terror group's military capabilities in Yemen. The Israel Air Force strikes at Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon and Beirut after 2 projectiles were launched toward Israel's northern communities. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledges to escalate the war on anti-Semitism. The Islamic Republic of Iran marked its annual Quds Day in reference to Jerusalem, during the course of which participants called for the annihilation of the State of Israel and the United States of America. Despite being brought to their knees with the Ayatollah regime's own defenses largely destroyed and their regional proxies heavily battered, regime supporters nonetheless are convinced that the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps maintains the upper hand, with messages of hostile intent broadly cited amid a pledge by the United States and Israel that the Islamic Republic would not attain nuclear weapon capabilities.
They can't do a damn thing. Even if they want to attack, we'll slap them hard in the mouth, and Allah willing. If they even land a slap or make a move, according to the Supreme Leader's words, the era of hit and run is over. If they hit once, they'll get 10 back, Allah willing.
From the first day you started threatening, you couldn't carry out even one of them, and until the end, you will not dare to act on any of your threats. Our brave Revolutionary Guard soldiers are fully prepared to completely destroy all your bases in the Middle East and all your ships and aircraft carriers, wiping them out entirely.
It is important to know that the situation in Iran is becoming increasingly harder, with the Trump administration's maximum pressure campaign already forcing Iran's national currency, the rial, to consecutive record lows. However, according to Iranian citizens, the main reason for the Iranian currency's rapid decline relates to circulating chatter about prospects of a wide-scale war between the United States and Israel versus Iran.
These whispers of war caused the dollar rate to rise. And if the slightest thing happens, the dollar will go even higher.
I think it is very unlikely that there will be a war with the policies they have. But if they talk about war, the same conversation will cause the dollar to increase in price the next day.
Meanwhile, in Yemen, the Iranian proxy Ansar Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi tribe, announced that in light of the American campaign against its efforts to thwart freedom of navigation in the strategic Strait of Bab el-Mandeb and adjacent waterways, they intend to gradually escalate their attacks against maritime shipping and the State of Israel.
The Yemen armed forces affirm that American aggression will only strengthen the resolve and resilience of the Yemeni people. The confrontations over the past days are merely the beginning of a gradual expansion of defensive operations in the coming days, and the enemy will witness more of the strength and determination of Yemen's steadfast and unyielding people. We will continue to prevent Israeli navigation in the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, and we remain committed to supporting our resilient and oppressed brothers in Gaza until the aggression against them ceases and the siege is lifted.
Following this blatant announcement, U.S. Central Command launched its most robust aerial strikes to date, destroying over 100 targets and eliminating at least 58 of the Houthi leadership. Among others, the brother of the tribal leader of the Houthis, called Abdel Halk el-Houthi, was initially rushed to an undisclosed medical facility after sustaining severe wounds. However, shortly thereafter, Houthi sources have confirmed that Abdel Halk el-Houthi had succumbed to his wound.
Well, definitely the citizens there in Iran are extremely upset about the ongoing political unrest that is interfering with their daily lives, that's for sure. Well, President Putin has made some bold statements in the past regarding this conflict with Ukraine. In a recent statement, he, that is the head of the Kremlin, said that Russia may soon finish off Ukraine's military. In that particular press conference, he said, quote, "What is happening today is essentially also clear. Our troops have the strategic initiative along the entire line of combat contact. I recently said that we would get the best of them, but there is reason to believe that we will finish them off," end quote.
Well, the Russian president also expressed confidence in his troops' advances, stating that the troops are moving forward, seizing control of territory day by day as they fight against the Ukrainian troops.
And if we keep going along this line, which it's not moving any closer towards peace. The United States is adding a $300 million plane, to its military. And of course, the continual unrest that we see taking place in the Middle East. We are every day moving one step closer to war. And then you add on top of that the frustrations from the prices of food and the things that people need to live, and the health is continually deteriorating with no solution in sight. The world is actually crying for help right now.
Right. No doubt everybody is looking for, they want answers, but as you mentioned, the situation is continuing to just go the opposite direction, and people are just kind of riding it out.
That's right. Well, if you'd like solutions to peace, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copies of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas, 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them by going to any of their websites. You can go to yahweh.com or yeshuahawkins.com or even yahwehsbranch.com. If you would like to visit our website, you can do so by going to YPNnews.com. If you'd like to email the House of Yahweh, you can email us at info@yahweh.com. For any international calls, please call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, don't forget to check out the Yisrael Says program by going to YisraelSays.com and the Ask Yisrael program by going to AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere, because up next is another classic sermon by Yisrael Hawkins. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.